Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, I'm here with my really good friend Gregorio, and he is representing Sabio. He's a teacher at Sabio. And what is Sabio? Well, Sabio is a school that is dedicated to teaching individuals out there like you how to code. Now, before you get all crazy and intimidated by, what coding is, basically it's just a new skill set that a lot of us are learning how to use in order for us to work remotely. And for a lot of you guys out there that are looking into moving to Mexico or moving abroad, well, that's like the number one concern is how are you going to make money? And a lot of you guys, again, as soon as you hear, oh, I'm going to be a digital nomad or learn how to code or learn technology. It's something that is very scary and intimidating for many of you guys out there, but that's what we're doing today's video. That's why I brought Gregorio on here, and we're talking to Sabio that is basically been in the industry for over 10 years and teaching people out there exactly what it is to learn how to code and how to take full advantage of this new skill set.
I'm a software engineer.
I'm a software engineer.
I'm currently a software engineer.
I'm a software engineer. I don't think I would have gone here without Sabio.
At Sabio right now, we're 100% remote. I think the remote world that we're living in today is great. What it's doing for students and people is allowing us to think about life in a different way than we hadn't thought about it before. It's not about being remote at work. It's about living where you want to live. Where do you want to wake up in the morning?
My job title is digital analyst. I basically fly out of any airport in the country.
Got a pretty good job offer. They also flew me out to Italy where I was able to work with the other developers there.
Maybe it's just about being close to your friends and family that you grew up with.
It's great to be in this position now, being able to tell them you can change your career and you can do something better.
I used to not see my son. Now I'm actually able to spend a lot of time with him. I also have the money to go and do things.
The opportunity to get a job in software development today, believe it or not, is actually much better than it was before.
It's very empowering because once you get into the job market, you really see the difference of how in demand you are with your skill set.
I got the job a little before a month of graduating.
After graduation, I got a job within the first few weeks.
At Sabio, we have worked really hard to make our program accessible to as many people as possible. We work with two really big, well-known financial providers in the industry, a whole host of veteran benefits.
I did almost 11 years in the military, and I was just kind of tired of entry-level positions.
I was able to afford to go because Sabio offers this incredible Women in Tech scholarship. From there, I got a job just like that.
In addition, we've rolled our own deferred payment program, and we are so confident in our program that we're deferring that payment until you get a job, until you get back into a position where you can make the financial contribution to your education once you're seeing the benefits of it.
In my mind, I was like, you gotta be a really good program in order to take that amount of risk. I also now make 2 times as much as I've ever made in my entire life.
You don't need to know math to get into computer science. The computer's gonna do the math for you.
I've never done coding prior to Sabio.
I was an econ major in college.
I got a bachelor's degree in political science that I couldn't really use.
What you need to do is solve problems. As long as you wake up in the morning, you're solving problems. And that's what we do in computer science.
It kind of gets you to step through the problem out loud. They really are keen on helping you build that.
We use our ability to write out some logic, the kind of logic that we do for solving problems, to make our computer software run.
It was very reassuring and telling me I can do this, I can learn how to code, because I definitely had some self-doubt.
We started Sabio so that people could find their way to economic empowerment in a manner in which wasn't accessible to them before.
I've only been coding for barely 3 years and I have a great paying job thanks to Sabio.
Had I not gone through their program, I would not be where I am today. I got the job that I have right now because of them.
I'm so excited to be where I am right now and doing what I'm doing. There's no way I would have been here without Sabio.
Tearing down barriers allows someone to go out and score a 6-figure job. You don't have to spend 8 years to go become a doctor. You don't have to spend 6 years and pass the bar exam.
Never thought I'd be in the position I am today. It will make the money I do now.
You could go this route, and by the mere fact that you have the nerve to try this, you can economically empower yourself to take care of yourself, your family, people around you, and have the life that you want.
So without further ado, let's just get into it. Let's talk to Gregorio and have him explain a lot better about what exactly Sabio does and what they're how they can help you in learning how to code, learning how to be a digital nomad, and learning how to again be your own boss. So Gregorio, can you first of all tell us exactly who you are? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, no problem. And first of all, thank you for having me on it. I really appreciate it. As you mentioned, I am an instructor here at Sabio. But I think it's very important to know, like pretty much all of my students switched into the career of software development, right? So before I started Sabio with Liliana, who happens to be my wife, about 11 years ago, I had about 15 years of software development experience. But before that, I went to school, and I went to school for athletic training. And I can tell you that when I was in school for athletic training, and I did a year of athletic training at Boston College, I was very computer illiterate. I didn't use the computer for anything other than sending email and searching, right? And so at the time, to give you all some perspective and to date myself, we're talking like Alta Vista search. It wasn't even Google search, right? So this is old stuff. I didn't know how to use spell check when I would write documents. I mean, I really didn't. In fact, that's how my professors at the university level came to tell me that I was dyslexic. I didn't know I was dyslexic until I got to college, because they were like, hey, listen, like, you don't know how to use the spell check. Okay, but I think you got a problem. And so, they were right. And so with all of that, university behind me, I was working as an athletic trainer. I realized that wasn't the path for me. And so I got into software development, and I did that back then using the closest thing that we would call today to a boot camp, which was adult school, which really wasn't intense. There wasn't a lot of computer science in it. I took an information systems certificate program at Northeastern University. Great school, great program. Didn't have a lot of computer science, but it was like the most computer science rich program that you could take without having any kind of background. And so I took that and I turned it into a career. About 18 months after I started that program, I had a really great job in El Segundo, right? So it didn't take me 18 jobs to get my first job. It probably took me a couple of months after I graduated from Northeastern, if not sooner, to get my first job, which was a QA role. And then I just, did a couple of quick hops and found myself working at a benefits software company in El Segundo. And so that's how I started. That's my background. And again, the background, why I bring that up and why it's so important is that a lot of people can transition to, just like I did. And we didn't have like the nice thing about today, there's different problems today. When you ask, where do I start? You get 1,000 answers, and there's 1,000 things to do. And like, which one of those 1,000 things should I do? That's the problem today. Back when I started out, there was nowhere to ask this question. I had to cobble this together and just put together an idea of what is the best way to get a job in an industry where you have absolutely no business being in. And so I had to cobble that together myself. And, I made that happen then. And so now Sabio is here to answer that question for everybody. What are the things that you need to do? Right? What is the path through the jungle, through the forest, through the desert, over the mountain, across the sea? How is it that I get from here to there when I don't have a background in software development?
Yeah, and so that's what Sabio does. Basically, it teaches people that, again, would never in a million years even consider themselves someone that could learn how to code or learn anything about this industry. And you're here to teach them exactly that, they can do this, and they can make a lot of good money doing this, and they can work from home, which is the most important thing, right? You guys are 100% remote. And so that's like, something that I think a lot of people out there are going to find, very... amazing, and very, again, for all those people out there that want to be digital nomads and stuff like that. So can you go into detail exactly, what is Sabio? Okay, so, we heard a few keywords there, coding, boot camp, right? Things like that. But, go into detail exactly, what is Sabio, and how can somebody that wants to learn, more about this, or learn how to be their own boss, learn how to be a digital nomad, like a real digital nomad, meaning, that they can learn a skill, and then they can go out there and get really good, high paying, high quality jobs that they can do from anywhere, and live off of that.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a little background as to what a coding boot camp is. And so look, a coding boot camp, that's just another word for saying It's a school. It's a school for adults, and it's an intense program. That's where you start off. That's where the coding bootcamp started off. But today, there's also, like, even here at Sabio, we have the intense program, and I'm going to tell you what intense is in a second. And then there's the not so intense for those that have to work, for those that have family, for those that have all sorts of different family responsibilities, whether it's taking care of kids or taking care of grandma, and having to hold down whether it's a full-time job or a part-time job. So it used to be that you had to the only choice you did was basically 6 days a week, just about 12 hours a day. That was the boot camp, like the intense boot camp experience was that. And it was crazy and it's super intense. But that was geared towards adults that, maybe they left their job. They were in between jobs and they were looking for like, hey, what's my next thing? Or people that were just fed up with their current job and saying, you know what, I'm done. I'm quit. I'm going to go do this software stuff because for all the good reasons that you're mentioning here. But today, now, what a lot of places have done, including Sabio, is that we have a part-time program that you can take at night, just like night school. Basically, you can imagine just like night school. So we have like a night school version of it that's a little longer, not as intense because we recognize that you need time to do your family and have your other responsibilities. And then there's a day school. Instead of it being at night, you come to us 3 days a week, morning hours, right? So 3 days a week, morning hours. And so, over the last 11 years, I can tell you that the idea of working remote not only has shifted, like we all understand that it's shifted for employers, and employers now, there's a little pushback about going, return to office stuff. Sure, there's a lot of employers that want you to go back into the office, but there's also a lot of employers that recognize, you know what, we don't need to do that. Like, we can stay home. We can save on all sorts of costs. I mean, the company can actually save on all sorts of costs. And it can also now, instead of recruiting around the area, that commutable area, like you can actually recruit across the country. So there's a lot of benefits for both. But I can tell you that 11 years ago, people looking to get into software, very few of them wanted to do this work remote. They felt anxious. They felt insecure about like, well, I'm new to the industry. Shouldn't I be inside the office? But, there were some positive things that came out of COVID. You get to realize, no, I actually don't need to do that. Like, it's another skill. It's another skill to learn to work with colleagues remotely. And if you can do that, which, how hard is that? Really, like, you just got to you have to be disciplined to know how to communicate and reach out to someone. Just like at some point you needed to learn, and for a lot of younger people, they don't realize, but you learn how to communicate and send text messages. And how was that? Like that, you don't even realize, but you had to learn that. So here you have to learn how to engage with your work colleagues using tools like Zoom or Google Chat or like you name it.
Yeah, I feel
Once
like
you learn that.
Yeah, like I feel like these days it's a lot easier for people to, get used to all that because they've already they had to get used to that, because of COVID, because of other things. The younger crowd as well, a lot of them prefer, to communicate this way. So it's a lot easier for them to get used to this.
And that's like the little funny thing about life is that like sometimes, Liena actually sent out a post recently about you need to be willing to do some hard things. And sometimes the hard things aren't hard. They just feel like it. And the hard things are the new things, right? Nobody likes change. Nobody likes to do something different. So those things create a lot of friction and we call them hard, but is it really that hard to get on a Zoom call? Is it really that hard to have a meeting remotely? It's not that hard.
Yeah. It's what you said. Is that change? It's like, so this is a change, for anyone out there that's looking for, hey, I want to move abroad. I want to be a digital nomad. I want to do all these things. Well, it comes with change. You got to learn all these new skills. And some of these things are not that difficult. It's just, learning how to do a Zoom call in case you haven't done that already or whatever it is. And so, like I do have a question for you because, that's something that I think a lot of people want to know is exactly, well, what is it they need to know? Like in the sense of like, what kind of background would someone need? What kind of knowledge would they need? Do they need to know math? Do they need to know what is it they need? And then on top of that, what exactly are you guys teaching? And how can they use what you're teaching to get a job? And what kind of jobs, would they be able to get? I think that's like what a lot of people are, they want to know more about in the sense, because sure, it's very easy to say, oh, go cook and be a chef. Or
Yeah.
hey, go learn to code, and code what?
Yeah. So
Yeah, what does that mean? Yeah.
let me put it in context that you just put it. All right. Like, so if I was going to teach you, so we're going to learn to cook. We're going to learn to cook, but I'm really talking about code. When I tell you that we need to learn to cook, one of the things that, well, am I going to cook French food? What kind of cuisine am I going to cook? Are we even going to call it cuisine, right? Like, are we flipping burgers? I mean, what is it that we're going to do? And one thing that's real easy that you're going to understand is that if I'm going to teach you French cooking, we don't got to worry about the rest of the cooking, right? We don't got to worry about whatever other type of cuisine and food there is out there. We're just going to learn about this thing, right? How to cook a steak like the French people cook it, whatever that is, right? Like, that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to do a couple of things. Like, there's some meat and potatoes. Like, there's literally some meat and potatoes that we're going to cook. We're going to cook it in this style. And we don't have to learn everything.
Yeah, so
About cooking.
so basically, it's like a base, level of skill. Like at the end of the day, it's like no matter what cuisine you're cooking, you got to learn how to cut an onion. You got to learn how to, again, cook a steak. Of course, depending on the cuisine is going to depend on how you're going to cook that steak, but you still need to know like the basics. And so it starts off with that, correct?
Yeah, it starts off with basics. And then the thing is this, there's some things that we would call basics. Like, I don't know what culture it is, but not everybody eats meat and potatoes, right? So for some cultures, that's not the basics. But if you have the basics over here and someone presents to you the basics of this culture, like, okay, I'm going to take what I've learned and apply it, because I'm a human being and I can apply it to how I'm going to do this here, right? Like, how do I have to prepare the kitchen? How do I have to warm the plates? Where do I have, like, you can apply this knowledge. And so that's one of the things that's the second thing that keeps people from jumping into here. The first thing is, again, is what we talked about, the change. It's the change. And I don't know. Is it really hard? I don't know. And because I don't know, I'm not going to do it because I'm scared. And then the thing is, well, dude, I got to learn everything. Absolutely not. In fact, the best developers, and you can tell how good a developer is that they admit that what they don't know is vastly larger than what they do know. I mean, it is vastly larger, right? There are people who you're going to get online, you're going to go right to a YouTube video next to this whenever you find it. There's going to be some super smart, freaky people about some things, but they don't know everything. You could ask them something about, something that you read about that they don't know. I don't know. We'll have to go look it up, right? So it's the fear of what you don't know, and then it's the thought that you have to learn anything, and you don't. Now, when you say, well, if I don't learn anything, how good am I? You're going to add so much value. Because again, like when you go to learn to cook, you can apply your knowledge. And, when you get into the kitchen as a new chef, they don't even call you a chef, right? They call you, I have other names for you. Now my knowledge of culinary arts is limited, but they're not going to call you a chef. Like, no. You're going to work in the kitchen. They have a different name for you. And like, maybe you're just peeling the potatoes for right now. As you learn, right? As you really, how to turn the oven on and you know how to cook the steak, but dude, like, easy, back up. You're going to do the other tasks while you learn, right? At least when you learn to the point where like, I'm willing to serve a customer something that you cooked up. So there is an opportunity for someone to, in fact, this is the beautiful thing about software development. Not only is there an opportunity to continue to learn when you get into the field, it's very much an expectation. If you want to be a good developer, you could also choose. This is also the cool thing and the horrible thing that leads a lot of good developers crazy, is that you could also choose to be a bad developer. And you're going to clock in, you're going to clock out. You're not going to learn anything unless I force it and ram it down your throat. And in a lot of places, it's okay to be a bad developer. So you go about your life being a bad developer.
So it makes a lot of sense, now that you're kind of, I'm glad I brought the kitchen up because now, I can explain a little deeper. But yeah, you make all the sense in the world. Basically, it's like you're learning a base set of skills. And depending on you as to whether or not you want to be the head chef or you want to just peel potatoes for the rest of your career, everything is open and available to you. And every single kitchen, right, just like every single, job out there, they're going to need someone to peel potatoes. They're going to need someone to wash the dishes. They're going to need someone to do all these basic, rudimentary, boring things that for some people, that's great. That's all they want. They just want to, like you said, clock in, do some work, clock out, and go enjoy, living in Mexico or Bali or whatever they're doing. But for some other people, they want to keep growing and learning and eventually, again, be a developer, be somebody that can, do more than just peel potatoes, perhaps, run the kitchen or whatever it is, okay. So that's okay. It makes a lot of sense. And so at the end of the day, as I was watching some of the videos on your YouTube channel, which by the way, I'm going to present later on or at some point, during this video for the viewers out there so they can get an idea as to, again, a little bit more of, how all this works. But long story short, one thing that I realized was the fact that, again, you don't really, like you were saying over and over again, you don't need math. You don't need all these crazy skills, just like in the kitchen. You really, as long as you can peel a potato or wash some dishes, we got a job for you. And so basically you're just basically showing people that, look, these are like the basic kind of things that you need to know in order to do this job. And then it's up to you, how far you're going to take it. Am I correct on this, or?
You're correct. And then the thing about that analogy, if we're gonna one of my superpowers to beat a dead horse, and we're gonna beat this analogy to death here. But the thing about peeling potatoes, not everybody wants to do it. And I consider software development a backdoor, a side door to a company and industry. So for example, you love music, right? And we just, it's not because we're here in LA, but a lot of people just love music, and the idea of getting into the music industry and, just being around it and being around that type of conversation, it's awesome. I want to be part of the music industry. But how do you break in? How do you break in when you're not even a music technician? You could be an accountant, right? In Tennessee. How do you get into the music industry? Well, how about you go in the back door, that software development, and say, look, I'm going to help you build all your music software, whatever that is. And why would you let me in? Because I don't have a resume of music. I'm an accountant. I'm a nonprofit manager. How do you do? Well, look, I learned to build software, and then I built a little widget for the music industry that's maybe it shuffles your playlist in something unique, in a unique way. And the people in the music industry, a particular company, name your big label. Well, look, we need software developers. It'd be great if we hire people who are about it, right? Who love music and are in it and understand it. And you can understand and be all about music without being in the music industry, right? You could be a super fanatic. So you could go in the back door by saying, look, I know how to build software. You need software developers. I love music so much, I built myself a little widget because that's a nice thing. It doesn't cost you a dime to go build a little widget, a little app that does a little thing that can impress somebody. And now you're in the building. Now you're in the building. Now you're in the music industry. And maybe you aren't best buddies with the president, and maybe you aren't best buddies with those folks, but you're in the building with them. And once you're in the building with them, you have a lot of potential to do some things, right? And you're peeling potatoes one day, and then you're cooking the steak the next day. And then someday someone's coming to you, well, dude, what else should we cook?
Yeah.
And now you're making decisions in the music industry.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, I mean, that's a great analogy too, because again, that happened all the time in the kitchens, where we just had some guy from Pakistan, whatever, or, some country out there. And he was just, peeling potatoes, doing simple, basic stuff. And then one day, the chef would be like, hey, can you make family meal? That's the meal for, all the employees. And it's like, yeah, sure. I'll make my mom's, recipe from blah, blah, blah. And then before you know it, you impress the chef. And you impress the owner, and before you know it, you're opening up your own restaurant, and they're backing you up, and that can happen in any industry. And I'm glad you brought that up because the thing is that in today's world, well, technology and, all this, software developing, all this stuff, this is something that's needed in every single industry in one shape, form, or another. And a lot of people, they still, they look at it as a very intimidating thing. So, for example, as you're coming into that job again, whether it's doing the music industry or whatever it is, any job out there, any career, it could be accounting, for crying out loud. But you go in there and you go in there with that skill set, and most people are going to be like, oh, look, that guy, you know what I mean? That guy knows. That guy's smart. That guy has like something that none of us have or have the ability to have. And you're thinking to yourself, man, I can't even tie my own shoes. I'm just kidding. But you know what I'm saying? But like at the end of the day, it's like it's like a superpower these days, more than anything else. And so this is awesome. This is great because that's the thing. It's like the sky's the limit. It's really up to you and what you as the individual want to do with these skills once you learn them. So speaking of that, how does it work? So how do people, how do I say this? Like, how are the classes taken? Let's say somebody is, interested in learning how to code, learning, how to do all this. And, they want to get in contact with Sabio and they want to, just do this whole thing. So how do the classes work? I mean, obviously they sign up online and all this other stuff, but how does, So
you go to sabio.la/apply and someone's going to contact you. Someone's going to call you. We're going to get a bunch of emails. And one of the emails that you get, we actually say, hey, you know what? Just start coding. If you haven't started coding, start coding here. Here's some resources. Here's a free class. You're going to see my face. You're going to see some other instructors delivering content via video.
Now, real quick, let me interject, okay? Because right off the bat, you said, okay, you get in contact, and then once they get in contact with you, they're going to ask you, okay, let's just do some coding. Okay, now, right now, there's a lot of people in the audience that is like, that's alien talk. What do you mean do some coding? It's like,
yeah. Well, look, coding
okay.
is,
so yeah.
The way you're going to see someone coding is they're basically just typing on their machine, right? But what are you typing? You're typing instructions to tell the computer what to do, right? And so some of the basic stuff that we do is to write like a traditional like hello world application. What is a hello world application? That's a little bit grandiose, but you write a little bit of code. So you give it some instructions to say, look, when I run this software, when I run this program, tiny program, the word hello world is going to show up on the screen.
Okay. So basically what you're doing is that, once they get in contact with you and you send them a little something to code, it's just basically to see if they have the ability to type, they have the ability to follow instructions, correct? And to see if they can, move this along. And before you know it, again, someone that's never coded before, they just follow these instructions. They might be really good with the computers already. And then before they know it, they're coding something, they're creating something, they're creating a prompt. They're creating something that, like you said, hello world, and now they got this thing that pops up. And by the way, it's funny you mentioned that because I remember back when I was growing up, when I was a kid, Windows 3.1 days, back in the 90s or 80s, that's how we would do stuff. It was just DOS. We would just type a few instructions, and then boop, something would pop up.
Something would happen. Yeah. And so today you do that, and so we just get you and we start from basics. We start from the assumption that you don't know anything. And then you just kind of keep learning. You got to keep listening to it. You got to keep listening over and over. And so again, some of the basics is just to get to some words to show up on the screen. Maybe you put a button on the screen. Okay. And what does the button say? It just says, maybe it just says button on it. And then maybe you change it so that it says click me. And then you change it so that at first when you click it, nothing happens. So you're like, click me, that's not cool. It doesn't do anything. So, okay, so when you say click me, that's when we're going to show the words hello world. And so you start doing that. And the way you do that is that you just write instructions in a particular way, right? Using, in English, we call it grammar, right? You got to have some type of grammar. If you don't write a sentence with good grammar, I don't know what you're talking about. In programming, we call that syntax. So you have to have the right syntax and to write the instructions to tell the computer what to do. And then you'll learn that the computer, as smart as it is, when you take control and you become responsible for telling the computer what to do, you realize the computer is really, I hate to say it this way, the computer is really dumb.
Yeah.
It's only going to do what you exactly tell it what to do. And so you realize, well, it didn't say hello world because there wasn't any place where you actually told it, oh, say hello world now. Okay, so that means that all right, I'm going to tell you when I click, I'm going to write some instructions that when you hear me click, go and write hello world.
Okay.
And so from there, you take that. So for example, going back to my own experience, I remember, as I told you at the beginning, like I only used the computer to send out emails. Like that was the fanciest thing I did, right? Was to type out an email, a to, a subject, and a message, and I hit the button. One of the very first things that I did in software development, and I remember, was to write a program that sent out emails for people. And so that's a big leap, right? Like I know now how to tell the computer to send out the email on behalf of somebody. Like that's crazy. And I'm going to grab the content from like, I don't know what different sources. I'm going to formulate the subject. I'm going to put the correct tool into it. I'm going to put correct, who's this really coming from? I put all those fields in there programmatically, and the email goes out the door, and I then learned what the door was. So that's the kind of thing that you do when you do programming. And so then, again, the type of things that we teach you is to work with a web browser. So in a web browser, we talk about buttons. Like the button could be on an app you spin up, whether it's an app you spin up on a mobile device, or maybe it's an app that you spin up on a desktop. But we specifically focus on the web browser because it provides a really easy, common, like everybody understands a web browser, right? You have a web browser on your machine, you have a web browser on your mobile device. People understand web browser in that kind of context. So we start in the context of a web browser, we do JavaScript, and we get you going that route. And so, coming out of our program, you'll go get a job building web applications. But before I go there, like I'm going to come back to your question. What does it look like when you come to school with us? So after you sign up, you're going to get a call from admissions, and proactively we'll say, hey, look, start coding, start learning over here. But once you sign up and once you come to us, let's say you sign up for one of our part-time classes. There's a part-time class that starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then there's a part-time class that starts at 6 p.m. Eastern Pacific time for 3 hours, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on Saturday, right? Both of those have a different length of time associated with them, right? So 9 o'clock comes around, the instructor joins the Zoom call, you join the Zoom call, you have a little meeting every day, and in a good software team, they have daily meetings. They call them the daily stand-up. So you just have a little daily meeting, an accountability meeting. We said we were going to do this homework. Did we do it? Did we do this work? Did we do the assignment? This is what we're going to do today. And by the way, when I was trying to do this stuff last night, I had a problem. Here's my problem. So we do that meeting every day. And then we just get right to coding. Like you had a problem, let's talk about it. Let's look at your code. Let me give you, as an instructor, I'll give you some feedback on the code. You're going to be seeing me give feedback to other students. We'll have lectures, right? If you have the part-time course, you get a lecture basically a day. The full-time course, you might have 2 lectures a day. Again, because the full-time course goes from 9 to 5 p.m. every day. And then on top of it, you're expected to work till like probably 9 p.m. But that's it. And then the thing is, we just go, right? For 17 to 24 weeks, the part-time program, depending upon what you sign up for, is 20 to 24 weeks. So you just do that day after day after day. And so from an academic effort, it's not like you come to us, a little difference that the kind of, adult school that we are. We're not the type of school that, okay, you're going to come in and do the prerequisites for English. I'm not going to make you do English. I'm not going to make you do math. I'm not going to make you do calculus. I'm not going to make you do some type of humanities or psychology course. No, dude, all we talk about is code and building software. That's it. And you have the instructor sitting there right there. So when we're not in lecture, you have a problem, you're going to sit down with the instructor, again, sit down via Zoom with the instructor and work on your obstacles every day. That's what happens. And when you're not in class, we have a Slack community that is open 24/7. It's a professional Slack community. So you have a history going back years of people who are talking about any particular topic. it becomes really interesting when you get to the part of the training where we help you get a job, because then when we're helping you get a job, you're like, hey, I got this email from Acme Corporation. How did things go? Like, what is up with Acme Corporation? So you can just search Acme Corporation and you get all the cool stuff. Maybe you get all the dirty laundry. Maybe you get some warnings that like, oh, those people aren't cool, or be aware of certain things, right? When you talk about big companies like Amazon and Microsoft and Tesla and a handful of other big companies, there's a playbook that we have. So like, hey, you're going to interview at Amazon. Hold up. Here's this playbook. Execute on it. This is how you prepare. Don't go in there cold. Don't go in there pretending like you don't know what's up. Like, we give you a playbook. This is the playbook for Amazon. Let's make sure that we're ready for these things. Study these topics. Make sure you answer questions in this way. There's all sorts of stuff that we prepare you with, not just in like, so there's doing the job, and then there's preparing for the interview. Two different tasks. Two very different tasks, unfortunately, but in both those things we help you tremendously.
Well, I mean, that's amazing. That's great, because again, you're not just teaching people, about the skill of coding, but you're teaching them, how to get a job, how to, ace an interview, who to go work for, all kinds of information as to what each company is going to be like. And, as you were explaining, some of how this works, especially the schooling part, I was like, oh, this is kind of like a trade school, like it's a modern days trade school, meaning like if you go to school for plumbing or electrician or mechanic, but you're teaching a new skill, a brand new skill. That's what it is. It's something that's
look, it's absolutely a trade school.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason we call it a coding boot camp is because someone wanted to come up with another nice little marketing twist to it. But like, if this was 30 years ago, we would just be calling this adult school. Like, I didn't know about like extension programs. Like, I don't know when they started calling extension programs of universities. But this is just adult school. Like, when I grew up, what we refer to this stuff is adult school. Like, it isn't high school. It isn't college. It's in the same kind of like layer as college, because it happens after high school. But it's just adult school. That's all it is.
Yeah. I mean, this is.
And if you did have this, if it wasn't for the fact that computer scientists are a little snooty, like, this is a vocational. This is completely vocational.
Yeah.
Right? You could take the vocation to a next level, just like you can take a carpenter and somebody that builds, who's in construction. You could take that to the next level and go build those huge towers in Dubai. Sure, you could do that. Or you could just be building single family homes all across Southern California. They're all one story. If you're not from Southern California, we're all one story here, right? Like, how many, you don't get too many 2-story homes. So
Yeah. I mean, you could do many things. Again, you could be literally, you could build furniture. You can, work for a furniture store. You can start your own furniture store. You could do artisanal furniture. You can be a handyman. You can do so many things. So it's the same thing here, where you're learning something, but it's basically the sky's the limit, as we were saying earlier. Where you could do so much with it. And that's, again, it's a modern day, trade school. The thing is, remember, coding is kind of like a new skill in this kind of world. But as you said, 30 years ago, this would just be, with any other, physical skill, like you were saying, right?
Yeah.
A trade.
And then the other thing to mention here, since we brought up I brought up the analogy of construction. You know how in construction they talk about measure twice and cut once? Like, whatever you're doing, you got to be really careful, because like, if you take this resource that you have and you try to allocate it and cut it, and you didn't measure right, like, you just wasted the resource. Same thing going back to being a chef or working in the kitchen. If you mess up the steak, it's done, right? And that was like an $80 steak. You just, oh my God, it's done. You got to throw it out and you got to start over. In software, you don't do that. In software, you Control Z, undo. Let me go back and let me start again. And that costs you absolutely zero. Doesn't cost you anything. So in my prior field, I was an athletic trainer, and I was literally responsible for people's lives. So if something bad happened, I'd have to go out there and on the spot, without Google, without the internet, without my buddies next to me, I had to do something correct. I had one shot at it. And if I didn't do it right, something bad could potentially happen here, right? Something very bad. In software development, you have the internet. I mean, honestly, like you're in an air-conditioned room. You have the internet. You have the refrigerator stacked with snacks. You have your buddy next to you. You have your buddy on the other side of the planet that will respond to you. And if for some reason something bad happens, you undo it. If for some reason you end up deploying some code to production, like where everybody can see it, guess what? It wasn't your fault alone, because you had to work on it like an English paper. Someone has to let's go read it. Let's see, did you write something decent? Then there's somebody that tests it. And there's all these checks and balances that happen between when you grab your code, you write it, you deploy it. So when something bad happens, it isn't, in a good shop, it isn't your fault. It's an entire system that failed, and the entire system needs to get worked on. So what you have to do is you have to sign up to go learn every day. Like I said, like you got to learn every day. Do something new that you hadn't done before, but it's like the other things you did before. It's not what you did before, but it's like it. So you're going to get to apply everything you learned to this problem. It's a new problem, new solution, and you just do that over and over and over again. Over and over again. And when bad things happen, Control Z. I hit Control Z because this is how I do the key. Control Z.
Yeah.
Right.
Trust me, I use it a lot myself. When I'm working. So okay, that's great. Okay, so now I got another question for you here. So what kind of special equipment does anyone need? In order to once they decide, all right, I want to get in contact with Sabio and I want to start doing this. What do I need for equipment?
We wouldn't call it a special equipment. You just need a laptop that's probably about $600.
Okay.
At the local Best Buy. All right. If you're gonna want to get something fancy, maybe you spend $1,000. But you probably a lot of people. That's one of those things that a lot of people, they buy like a super duper computer, and then they just use the web browser on it.
Right.
Well, let's put it to use now. Right. Let's put it to use now, because if you think about a $600 laptop, or even sometimes depending on the desktop, it might even be cheaper to get a desktop. Right now, I'm on my desktop, and it's beautiful. It works out just great.
Yeah.
Right. $600, $700 is not. It's something.
Now, real quick. Now, so basically, anyone that is already sending you an email, they already got a computer, so they can start with that. Basically, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
They don't need a special laptop for learning to code.
You can use your laptop to learn. Am I going to want to learn this?
Right.
Because we do have that. That does happen, and that's you can't complain about the situation where someone from the outside, they come in, Gregorio, I want to learn a code. Let's do this. And after a couple of weeks, you realize, man, I don't like sitting in front of the computer this long. I like my other job where you might have been door knocking, selling people solar panels. That's a perfectly decent job. You go around, you try to do sales, and you're outside, and you get to see the sun, you get to breathe, but you don't have to be stuck to your chair.
Right.
Now, the reality is, as you mentioned, like the nomad, like once you get to that level, you could be a meaningful nomad and take your laptop out to the patio, right? It could be your patio in your apartment. It could be the patio in the hostel that you're staying at. It could be the Starbucks, not downtown LA, but maybe there's a Starbucks in Paris. I don't know. Like, go to the Starbucks in Paris, as long as they have Wi-Fi. You're still in front of the computer.
Yeah.
But your surroundings could be the nice beach, the nice city. You can overlook some park. Maybe no one knows this park, but like you have opportunities to do things like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so you make a lot of sense, because trust me, again, so my background, before I started doing YouTube, I was a chef, I was a cook, that's what I did for a long time, and trust me, I would see it all the time, where people were like, all right, I'm done doing my desk job, or I don't want to be a dental assistant anymore, I want to go in the kitchen, and they wouldn't last, forget a week, they wouldn't even last one shift, or, a few days. So yeah, obviously, this is, something that people should try out. And, once they figure out this is for them, then they can continue going forward. And meaning, they can start to learn how to do everything on the computer they probably already have. And then eventually, let's say they graduate and they want to do this for a career. Well, then they'll just buy themselves a laptop, just like a chef would buy themselves some knives, or, a plumber or mechanic would buy themselves some tools, so that they can use themselves, for their career. So, okay. So really that's all you need. You don't need anything else. That, maybe some pen and paper, take some notes, things like that. If
that's how you learn,
yeah,
you can totally take pen and paper notes. You can, type out notes on your computer,
yeah.
right? It's learning, like, however best you learn, you can adopt a lot of it here. There is one difference though, like you just meant, like, again, you mentioned you were being in the kitchen, right? Like, you can't really learn cooking. Like, it would be inappropriate at a certain level if everything you did in this kitchen was like, oh, let's just try this out. Let's just dump a bunch of this seasoning in there. Let's just try that out. Again, the measure twice and cut once scenario, some people get stuck on that. And unfortunately, that's unfortunate, because one of the best ways to learn in software development is to continue to blow stuff up. So what I tell my students sometimes is that, look, it's not that I know what to do. It's that I've tried everything else and I know everything else doesn't work. So I've been down that road and that's not good. It's ugly. It's terrible. I've been down all of these roads and I know that's not good. So by a simple process of elimination that I've had to accrue over 25 years, I know all of those things don't work. Absolutely not. So I'm just left with a couple of things to try. And at some point, I'm not going to care which one I try first, because if I have 3 things to try right here with you, I could be thinking forever about which one's going to be right. Or I can try A, it don't work. I can try B and not work. And now guess what? It must be C.
Yeah.
I can quickly get there, which is a different learning style. So some people that come to us who are very academic, they're a little hesitant about, well, do that, but I don't know. They'll come and ask a question. Is this the right way to do it? Is this going to work? I don't know. Why don't you run it?
Right. Yeah.
Let's run it, and we're going to find out real quick.
Yeah. No. So it makes sense too. Again, coming from the perspective of being a trade school, it's the same thing in the kitchen. You know how many times I had to cut myself, burn myself, mess up a recipe, so on and so forth. Same thing as learning any other skill. It's like you're gonna make a lot of mistakes in order to learn what not to do and what the best option is, and so on and so forth. And experience. That's how you build that experience and that knowledge base and all that good stuff. So all right. So now I got some more questions here for you. I want to ask you. So this is a school, and so what are their financial requirements? Meaning, can somebody just pay out of pocket? What if they cannot afford the program out of pocket? Are there options like third-party lenders? Again, it's a school, so I don't know. Can they just get like a Sally Mae loan or whatever it is? Or do you have scholarships? Whatever. Can you talk to us about that stuff? Yeah.
So look, the sticker price, depending on the program that you pick, full time or part time, it's going to be anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000. But we have scholarships. Depending on the time of year, we have different kind of scholarships that you could probably get that closer to $10,000, $10,000 to $12,000, I'd say. And then there's payment plans that we could potentially put you on, and then there are loan providers that you could qualify for. And so the loan providers are specific to this industry. Like you can't just go to the bank and get a loan for anything, right? Like the bank is going to give you a loan under certain circumstances for certain use cases. Then there's certain like education loan providers that'll give you, again, there's a different set of rules. There are a specific set of finance players that will give you a loan for coding bootcamp. And depending on the program you pick, like you might pick a program that says, I'm not going to start paying you until 3 months after I graduate. Or I'm going to pay you right away, like $100 a month. And then as soon as I graduate, it'll go up to like, I don't know, $200 a month. Like I'm making these things up because it just depends on your financial background, right? Like, and your choice, you get to pick. Naturally, if you push something off and say, look, I'm not going to pay you for 3 months, that's going to come, at the end of the day, that might be a little bit more expensive than if you started paying right away, right? I honestly don't think that's a deal breaker, but it just depends on your financial background, right?
Yeah, because like I saw, I think in one of your videos or something, that there's people that go to your school and they don't pay anything, and then once they graduate, once they get the job, once they're in place in the industry, then at that point, that's when they pay off the loan. And by the way, that's not that big of a loan, to learn such an amazing trade, and an amazing skill that is very much needed in today's world. That's not that much. I mean, are you kidding me? I paid more for culinary school.
Yeah. Well, look, when you think about the win on the other side, it really isn't that much, and it's an important thing to know, because who knows when someone's going to be watching this video. Like, the different types of loans that are available, they change, right? So they change from time to time. So when you call us up right now, we're recording this in April. Well, if you call me up in November and December of 2025, like, look, there might be something different going on. But yeah, now you're talking about the ROI. Let's just say you paid full sticker price, $15,000. I had someone the other day go get a job, had no technical experience before, had no degree before. I think they were making like 35 to 40K before they came to us. Now they're making $105,000.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, like you said, the ROI, the return on investment, is extremely high, and then what I mean. At the end of the day, I guess like what I was trying to get at with the question was that for someone out there that wants to learn these skills but probably doesn't have any money in their pocket, is this something that's accessible and available to them?
It is accessible. You got to be willing to invest.
Right.
You have to be willing to invest. If you're not willing to, and so this is one of those things that you kind of, I think everybody knows this, but like, what does it really mean to invest in yourself? Like, you got to invest in yourself.
Right.
And so for me, this is what I did when I left athletic training. As an athletic trainer, I left one of the best jobs that I could have gotten, that anybody could have gotten coming out of school. It was one of the best jobs. It was, comparing to everything in the world, it was a horrible job because it paid awful. But I said, you know what? Like, I got to stop this. I went in fact, I worked in the kitchen a lot. I did everything in a restaurant except bartend and cook. But I was a food runner. I was the guy who runs around with the bus boy, right? Is the bus boy? The bus boy. I helped my restaurant open up a new facility. So I was in there like, hey, they're gonna pay me to come in, and I need work because I needed work. I needed money so I could go to night school. I was a courier. I did a bunch of different things to make ends meet because I was investing in myself. I said, look, I'm going to invest in myself because this career is something that I'm going to go, I got to make this work. I got to go make this work, and I'm going to put my time into it, all sorts of hard work into it, and I'm going to put my money behind it, right? And not just my money, my dad's money. So, again, I continue to borrow off of mom and dad, which is what you got to do. That's what you got to do. But it paid off. The ROI was great. And so to tell you again, the ROI for me, as an athletic trainer, back then, like even though I had done a stint with the Buffalo Bills, I did a summer stint with the Buffalo Bills, which was super awesome.
Wow, that is super awesome.
And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an athletic trainer in the NFL. The thing about the athletic trainer positions in the NFL is you don't just get those. Like, those don't become available. What happens is that people move up. And when do people move up? And when do people get sucked in is when someone dies. If the head athletic trainer dies, then fuck it. Then we come in and the next person goes in, and I was not going to wait for a bunch of random people to die so that I could get paid, 75 to 80 grand, right? That was not going to do that. Now, the weird thing is I didn't do the awful thing. And this is what happens. This is still what happens today with young folks, is that they don't necessarily plan ahead too much, and they don't ask those questions too much about, well, where's this career leading me? Right? Where's this degree leading me? Where is this? And guess what? It wasn't leading me anywhere good. So I went in, and when I remember 18 months. 18 months is a really important time because when I got to LA, it was about 18 months since I started my career, and I was making more money then than the head athletic trainers were. It would have taken me my entire life to get there.
Wow.
But in software, I did it in 18 months.
Yeah. Wow, that's an amazing story. Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense. Trust me. I mean, I loved cooking and being a chef, cook, all that stuff, but it didn't pay much. A lot of people are like, oh, but I know a lot of chefs that make a lot of money. It's like, well, yeah, there are, people, chefs out there that make money, but 90% of them don't. And you were in the industry. You worked enough in the restaurant industry to know exactly, how all that works. But yeah, that's a big incentive as well, because a lot of people want a good, high paying job, and that is hard to come by these days. And this is something that being learning this skill provides. So now talking about jobs, I want to ask another question pertaining to that. So you touched on it briefly a little earlier, but okay, once I graduate, once I'm done, I got my my degree, my whole thing. How do I get a job? How does that work? How does it work for me to really, connect with a job? I know you briefly explained it, but, just, go through it again real quick, in the sense of like how would that work? Yeah.
So look, there's a lot of facets to it. Some of the easier stuff and some of the more convenient stuff is that, we have a community now of 1,500 developers, and people will post internally, there's a job in my company, there's a job that I know about, like it's going to hit the market, and they recommend, basically they seek out and they post and say, hey, come and apply to this job. And we have a lot of alumni that are very helpful in that regards, that they make the community very valuable. But likewise, Liliana and I and our staff, we've been at this for a long time. So like we will also get leads and we will put it out there, and then we will try to connect people with someone. Alumni will directly reach out to us, right? And so, I did this this past quarter. Someone reached out to me, and I sent over like maybe 5 or 6 resumes, and they picked one of the people out of there, right? So that's the fun part of the job search, right? Where you get referrals, you get inbound, right? So there's here it comes. But I just wrote this the other day online, like it's called a job hunt for a reason. Yeah. It isn't a job picnic. It's a job hunt.
Right.
And so we teach you to hunt. We give you the support, because sometimes you go on hunt and you come back with nothing. And so that actually happens more often than not, and that gets really demoralizing. So we coach you, we support you through those demoralizing times when there's no food on the table and you need a job, meaning there's no interviews lined up. There's nobody says, I want to talk to you. And like, you really feel like, man, this tremendous amount of rejection here. This sucks. So yeah. So now that sucks, we're there to help you. Right. So I tell people, we obviously want to hear when good things happen, but we want to hear when things are not going well, because we're here to support you. And I say me, the chief academic officer and founder of the CEO, we have career services, our staff, and other mentors. We have actually assigned you a mentor from the community. And then the job hunt is what it sounds like. Look, we got to go and look for work. The nice thing is, again, 20 years ago, there weren't that many places. It was like monster.com. And that was it. Now there's, I don't know how many different job places that you can go look for. It seems to be a new job board every day. So, but there's some core job boards that we want you to go look at and send out resumes for. And then when they respond, sometimes they respond with some interesting questions, some interesting conditions, let's say, terms, and we help you navigate that. We'll help you negotiate that. We'll give you some feedback. Sometimes you know what to do. Like, Gregorio, this doesn't sound right. Should I do this? No, you're right. Let's not do that. This sounds really good. Am I missing something? You're not missing something. It's fantastic. High five, man. Like, let's call it a day. Let's go get a job. Let's start working, right? So we go through all that with you, but it is a job hunt.
Yeah.
So you got to be ready to hunt. Now, the thing about this, if you listen to people in tech right now, most everybody in the world is used to a job hunt. The people in tech, they're a little soft right now. They're not used to a job hunt. So if you listen to the people in tech, they're being a little bit of I don't know. They're just a little soft. That's what I can tell you.
Yeah, a little negative, I guess. On the.
Oh, they're very negative.
Yeah,
they're very negative because, we just finished coming off some really great time in tech, where jobs were very plentiful, and honestly, people were just getting hired like left and right. But there were still people fighting for jobs. Like, right, my coding bootcamp students still had to fight for jobs. They still had to fight for jobs because you're still competing against people on paper that like, look, you have 6 months of experience with, and then we have this computer science student over here. Like, you got to fight. That's a fight. But if you prepare, so this is what we teach you. You got to prepare. You got to prepare to win on a resume. You got to prepare to win on LinkedIn. You got to prepare to win on phone screens. If you prepare, that fight, it starts to look a little bit one-sided in your favor.
Right.
Because most people don't prepare.
Right. Yeah, you make a lot of sense too, because it's like it's not just hey, I can code. No, it's like, what other skills do you bring to the table? What if you know another language? Hey, now all of a sudden you got even more job offers. In another market, and again, if you have skills from other areas, that could somehow. Right, like kind of mix in with what So it's just like anything else. Like you said, it's a job hunt, and it's not going to be easy. I mean, it could be easy. You never know, right? You could strike gold, and you might be able to get something good right away. But the reality is that it's like anything else. It's going to take work and effort. But the most important thing that you're offering, which again, a lot of schools and trade schools do not offer, is all this support. All this help. Basically, you're helping them all the way through until they get a job. And that's very, very, that's what is it, like, very useful, what not useful, what is it, very valuable, it's extremely valuable. Because look, for me, when I went to culinary school, again, it's trade school type of thing, whatever. But for me, I was already in the industry. I was already a cook. I was just trying to get my degree and do all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I remember so many people, they would graduate, and then that's it. They would just get thrown to the wolves and go ahead, figure it out. We're not going to help you. And a lot of schools, do something like that. But you guys don't. You guys are very, very hands-on. And what is it, like your former students, your alumni? So many people are just constantly helping each other out. And, that community is very, very important, because it's like, that community is what really helps people be able to get that job that they really want. And again, know what is it? Get something that they know they're going to be worth, like you said, they have other people to bounce things off of, meaning, hey, Amazon is saying, I can, work at this place, but this doesn't sound right. What do you think? Oh yeah, no, don't sign that. That's not good. That kind of stuff, that really goes a very long way. So yeah, I'm glad that you guys do that. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are also, happy to hear something like that. So yeah.
Coaching, mentorship, super important.
Yeah. So, now that you've shared all that, what I want to do now is that, like, I want to show some of the people in the audience some of the videos of that you have on your actual YouTube channel of success stories, because, there's a lot of people out there that have already graduated from your school. You guys have been teaching for over 10 years, and you have a lot of success stories. Like you said, you have over 15,000 individuals out there in your system and all that good stuff. So I'm going to be sharing that with the audience.
My name is Marty Henry, and I'm from Inglewood, California. What stood out to me the most about Sabio was their support system, and they really broke down how they can get you from point A to point B, which is pretty much getting a job in tech. I've never done coding prior to Sabio. I didn't really know an HTML from a CSS to a JavaScript. I was pretty much sold upon how they were transparent about everything. They tell you, this is what you have to do. You have to work hard for it, but if you do, these are the rewards. My experience at Sabio was, for lack of a better word, fulfilling. I like to figure stuff out. I like to build things. I like to be creative. So I think coding enables my creativity in a different form of medium. It's very empowering, because once you get into the job market, you really see the difference of how in demand you are with your skill set. And it's almost like you're able to make the calls of what job you want. And that's what Sabio presents to their students once they get through the program. My cohort was a steep learning curve. What kept me going was knowing that if I went through this program, I'm for sure gonna get a good paying job. But eventually things started clicking for me. There was a hackathon that we competed in. I actually won first place. Winning that hackathon told me that this is something I know I can do for a living. My job now is a sports digital media company. They're based in Italy, but they have offices in LA. I got a pretty good job offer. They also flew me out to Italy, where I was able to do some training and work with the other developers there. The experiences at Sabio, they help prepare me in a sense where if I have a question, I have to be able to figure out what are the questions that I need to ask myself and what are the problems that I need to figure out how to solve before I can present it to my peers. What was great about the cohort environment is pretty much the same as how you would work in a professional environment. That kind of environment that Sabio garners is what helps in the real world as well. That helped me even with pretty much every job that I had. I've only been coding for barely 3 years and I have a great paying job thanks to Sabio. They prepared me well for that kind of job environment. One of the things I have been doing since getting into the tech profession is trying to get involved in teaching kids how to code. The advice I would give to people who have never heard of Sabio, come in with an open mind. It's not easy, but if you put in the time, you will get the gist of how to code and you'll eventually become a coding rock star. I think how Sabio influenced my life, I have a better outlook as far as where I see myself. I think Sabio is great for helping people understand their worth. They understand that there's a demand out there that needs to be met and they have what it takes to get the people that they need into those spots. I don't know any other coding program or any program like Sabio where they can help give people opportunities for a new career change and a lucrative career change.
I never thought ever in my wildest dreams that I'd be living and working in Hawaii making a lot of money. So thank you, Sabio. My name is Melissa Hargis, and I'm from Texas originally. Around the time that I decided to join Sabio, I was teaching the most amount of classes that you can teach at a university. I had maxed out on my salary, which wasn't very high at all. There was no room for growth. I wanted to constantly be developing my career and my skills. My daughter was not even a year old. I didn't want to waste 4+ years at a 4-year university getting a computer science degree. Then I came across Sabio, and Sabio was one of the only coding boot camps that had a good reputation. It seemed like exactly what I needed. I decided to take out a personal loan and just go for it. And it really, really worked out. I knew from the first weekend that this was going to be life-changing and that I'd made the right choice. At Sabio, we were learning very hands-on. From day one, we're learning by doing, and we are doing the things that you actually will do in your job. I know that now because I am on the job. Gregorio was our instructor and he was fantastic. He was so dedicated to making sure that we learn, and he was available to us almost 24 hours a day. From the beginning, Sabio guides you with getting a job. That's part of the program. The first interview I went on, I was offered the job, and so I started my first full stack software engineering job 3 weeks before graduating from Sabio. That's just how Sabio works. Sabio is all about getting you the skills that you need quickly and giving you that confidence to know that you can go into these interviews and you do know what you're talking about and you can perform well as an engineer. Currently, I am working for a company called Upstart. My title is Senior Software Engineer. In my job, I'm fortunate enough to kind of have freedom to work on what it is that interests me, and that's very typical of software and engineering position. One of the great things about being an engineer is the job flexibility. So it's been great as a single mom. Upstart actually went public almost a year ago. When we went public, I was able to buy a house and I could go anywhere because we're remote first. So I said, hey, where do I want to live? I want to live in Hawaii on the beach. And so I could afford that. So I can be at home with my daughter, work from home. Without Sabio, I would never be here. Sabio gave me those skills very quickly to get my first job. And it's just been one awesome thing after the next. I started with Sabio 7 years ago, and now here I am. It's really night and day that I can actually afford to buy a house and I can give my daughter everything that we want to be able to give our children. I never thought ever in my wildest dreams that I'd be able to live in Hawaii. Now this is my office. I get to go swimming in the ocean after a meeting from work. If you're not sure and you think that you maybe want to transition into software engineering and try a boot camp, I think you really really owe it to yourself to give it a shot. It was the best thing I ever did. You will always be in demand. I get so many emails every single day where companies are looking to get me to come interview with them. There's just so many jobs in tech for us engineers. I know that I'm always going to be okay. I will always have a job, and a really lucrative, fun job at that. Without Sabio, I would not be living and working in Hawaii making a lot of money.
Now you guys saw some success stories out there, and you guys have basically saw this whole video all the way through. I'm sure you guys are wondering how to get in contact with Sabio. So please, can you tell us exactly, where to get in contact with you and how to get in contact with Sabio so that, people can rush to you guys and, get to learning as soon as possible?
Yeah, look, sabio.la/apply. There's going to be a form. You fill it out there. If for some reason you can't wait, at the top right, there's a little link that you can click to schedule a one-on-one meeting right away with admission. So those two things, like you don't have to click for the appointment. But go ahead and click for the appointment, pick your time, and our admissions people will get with you.
Awesome. Sounds easy enough. I'm sure anyone out there can do it. So, all right, Gregorio, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and I know this video has gone long enough and has brought a lot of useful information. I really want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure the audience is very, very thankful that you decided to come on the show and share with us everything about Sabio. Is there any final words you want to share with us before we head out?
Well, the final thing I'll say is that, unlike myself, 25 years ago, there weren't many resources for me to do research. Here, there's an ample wealth of opportunity for you to do research. Do that research, right? Ask people online, find people on LinkedIn, ask a bunch of people about this effort, about this thing, and make up your own mind as to whether or not you want to do it. And then keep in mind, you're the one that has to drive it. Right? Like 25 years ago, you could have told, 100 college kids, go and get into software development. Like, you have no business doing it. Not everybody could have done that, right? Not everybody wants to put in the hard work. And so if you're willing to put in the hard work, this field will reward you. But you got to put in the hard work.
Yeah, totally makes sense. That's something I say on the channel a lot. I'm constantly beating people over the head with that knowledge. Basically it's up to you. You can watch all the YouTube videos in the world. You can try to read all the books out there. But at the end of the day, it's up to you and the hard work that you're willing to put in, whether or not you're going to be a success, and whether or not everything is going to come to fruition or not. So, all right, guys, with all that being said, you already know the deal. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon, but more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. And please go check out Sabio, and hopefully you'll have Gregorio as your teacher, and he's going to definitely, be able to teach you guys exactly, how to be a huge success in this industry. So again, thanks guys. Thank you, Gregorio. All right. And
thank you so much.
All right, man. I'll see you guys. All right. Bye-bye.